Hi, I'm AJ Hartley, novelist and Shakespeare professor and baby metal fan. And I hadn't been sure as to whether I was going to do any more of these videos. People sent some really supportive and helpful comments, and I'm really grateful for that. Thank you. As I said, we don't have quite as many views as we were getting initially, but as people pointed out, a lot of that are people looking for sort of straight reaction videos, and this is obviously not that. Uh, so I thought I would use that to push into the second album, and it made sense to start with Road of Resistance, which is as close to a title track as I think you're going to get on Metal Resistance, the second album. And I love this song. It's one of my favorites on the album. In many ways, there's not that much to say about it, so I'm going to break it down lyrically and then at the end talk a little bit about what I think the song is about. And that's as much about feel as it is about lyrical content. You may disagree. You may have different political ideas from me. That's fine, whatever. It's not fine, but okay. and so I'm going to try to keep this relatively short so that I don't scare people off. And then maybe we'll move on to something else. Thanks. I hope you enjoy it. So I'm just going to stop it there, partly because I just want to sort of set the thing up a little bit, and because, again, I want to avoid having to take the video down because of copyright stuff. So obviously this is, again, a composite video based on multiple performances over several different shows over a period of time. So the personnel changes, you'll see Yui there periodically, and then you'll see the other Avengers and other backup combinations that have sort of taken her place since. So sometimes you're going to see 3 people on stage, sometimes it's going to be 4 or 5. And the first thing to say about this song, you can hear it in that guitar part. This is actually a collaboration with Dragon Force, who are a sort of, how would you describe them? I guess sort of some speed metal, but also they've got a sort of progressive rock kind of feel. A lot of their stuff is very sort of epic, high fantasy driven, with a lot of connections to video games. And the guitar work on this song was done by, originally at least, Sam Totman and Herman Lee, who have both talked about the process thereafter. Herman Lee, I saw interviewed recently, and he talked about the playing of the guitars, but he didn't say anything about how the melodies came to be created. So I'm assuming that the song was given to them pretty much fully done, and they played the part because Koba and the other people involved in the production wanted to get that Dragon Force kind of sound. There may be other connections too as well, but we'll get to those later on. But it has so right out of the gate, it has this epic, heroic kind of scale. The flags, which are built into the sort of visual thing, are supposed to sort of counterpart that, and we're going to see this get developed more fully in the course of the song. So in the background, you hear the sort of the drum, which has this kind of quasi-military sound, and likewise the conch, the big shell that was sort of blown. To what extent it was actually used in old sort of medieval combat, and to what extent it's just become a sort of fantasy inclusion, I don't really know. But the whole song sort of sets up this Lord of the Rings type battle sort of thing, right? And we get this, it's reminiscent of something like the 1812 Overture. The sense of telling a story about an epic battle through musical phases. Obviously, that's the Tchaikovsky telling the story of the Russian, the French invasion and failed invasion of Russia in 1812, obviously. And it has the sort of beats as it sort of describes the battle, and you hear the cannon fire and so on. This doesn't do that, but this first part, I think, sets up that sort of phase of the story, such as it is. And now we part the crowd to create the mosh pit. And you see how that sort of physical, martial artsy kind of stuff, which they use in other songs as well, is built into some of the choreography. But you also notice that sort of cavalry motion, that they look like they're charging on horses. So again, I think it reinforces this sense of some sort of epic high fantasy battle before we move into the first break of the lyric. So let me break a little of that down as we go. Okay, so let's pause there. So the first four lines, so painting the eastern sky in a deep red color. The light of the signal fire announces the end of the darkness of solitude, right? So this sense of deep isolation, which is being the end of that is being communicated by the signal fire. So again, we're getting one of those sort of Lord of the Rings type iconic images, the fires that are lit to communicate alarm or victory or any combination of those things. And then it says Aratana Mechi Shirube. Aratana is like Atarashi, but it's an old-fashioned form. So again, it has that sort of slightly heroic discourse. And we're talking about a signpost for a new direction. And then the last two lines, Kuji kite mo nando demo kokoro no moyase. So even if you're beaten down repeatedly, if you're crushed, you keep the flame in your heart ablaze, or keep reigniting the flame. I guess it could be either. So it's so the sense is, I think, that this phase of the battle that we've been talking about has already sort of ended. But there's some kind of persistence going forward, that there's this new direction that we're headed in, and no matter how many times you've been defeated or will be defeated, you have to keep that spirit ablaze. And this is an idea that comes up a number of times in the song, this sort of flame of the heart that has to keep burning, like the signal fire itself. So now we start to blend with English lyrics. Now it's the time. This sort of moment right now it's time, and then living together, or living with love, I guess, is the time, and I I'm singing for the people of tomorrow, um, now that the time has come. So again, there's this sense that something has ended, but it's not finished, and there's a new phase beginning that we have to sort of prepare for, right? Like, what did Churchill say at the end of the Battle of Britain in the early years of the Second World War? It's not. This is not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end, but it is the end of the beginning. Something along those lines. And I think something of that is being said here, right? That whatever phase has just been completed, we're still in the midst of something that we have to keep fighting for in the future, right? And we're addressing the people of the future. Great. Yeah. So now we're hitting this real sort of anthemic, and you can hear it picking up in the guitar part as we come out of the lyric. This sort of rousing chorus. It's not actually a chorus, because the song doesn't really repeat. Each moment is sort of discrete within this song. It's separate. So again, we dip into the English, go for resistance. Kokoro wa hitatsu. Our hearts are one, right? This is an image that we keep coming back to, this idea that we're all sort of connected. And of course, the one is something that we hear a number of times in this song, and connects to that sense of the band's larger fan base, which are referred to as the one. We'll talk about that in a minute. So again, I've talked about this before, that sometimes they tend to use male pronouns, which apparently is becoming more and more common in J-pop and things like it. If you believe, it's not entirely clear what you believe, what we're supposed to believe in, either believe in yourself or in something else which is unspecified, then advance, keep going, even though there is no path or no road. So I think the idea is that we're marching into an unknown future. We're trailblazers. We're explorers. We're adventurers. We're going where no one has gone before. Sorry. But I think that's the spirit of it, right? And again, it has this sort of individualistic determination that we're part of a community, but we're also leading that community in pursuit of whatever we value, whatever we believe in. And as I say, the song is fairly unspecific as to what that is, but we're going to pursue it anyway. And then that last point, this is the tricky bit. Kokoro no oku ni moeru atsui hato. Yeah, so in the depth, it's tricky because the word heart sort of reappears. In the depths of our heart, the hot heart is blazing, which feels like a tautology. That in your heart there's a heart. The way that it's written in the lyric sheet, there's a footnote to a different kanji on the hot heart, moeru atsui hato, which is glossed as a kind of soul of steel or metal heart, right? Which again fits the band. Again, it's not entirely clear what they mean by metal, except this sort of strength and determination and personal commitment. Sorega bokura no resistance, and again, there's that male pronoun. This is our resistance. So our resistance. I'll come back to this at the end. Our resistance is a resistance of the heart, a resistance which is internal and about what we believe in and what we stand for. obviously this goes on for a little bit. Different concerts, it goes on quite a lot, quite a long time. And it's that sort of sing along moment, right? And again, this has got that anthemic, epic kind of feel to it. But I think it's really important that it's also designed to include the audience and the crowd and get that sing along thing going, because as the lyric has already made clear, the what we're all about, the sort of the unity of our hearts. It's all about our hearts, and our hearts are one. Our hearts are bound together. So it includes the audience and the fan base in the impulse to talk about ourselves and what we stand for, which I think is kind of cool. Yes. I love how with the non-actual Baby Metal members, the other the other young women who have been sort of drafted in to do to take Yui's part in some fashion. I love that you get a glimpse on their faces sometimes that there's this sort of simultaneous panic and astonishment that they get to do this, and they're having a blast, and with Sue and Moa, there's a sense that they own this. They're all over it. They're totally. Not to say that they're not enjoying it or invested in it. They absolutely are, but they don't have the surprise that the others that you glimpse in their faces sometimes. And you'll notice that we're about to go back into the lyric part of the song, but the lyrics don't repeat, right? It's unusual for a Baby Metal song that it doesn't have a chorus or even a sort of bridge or pre-chorus which repeats. Each moment within the song is unique. Yeah, so as long as life goes on, presumably my life, I won't turn my back on my purpose, my sense of direction. I'm not going to return to what I was before or the reality that I lived in before. Today makes tomorrow. Today determines what tomorrow will be, right? Whatever we do today will determine our future. Yeah, so it's our future and on the way. Okay, I got to stop it there because to me this is the meat of the song. Resistance, resistance, stand up and shout for justice forever. It's really interesting to me that the most specific word in the song about what we're actually fighting for is an English word, which is justice. Do I want to talk? So I think we have the setting of combat and struggle and determination and the pursuit of some sort of ideal. But the song is fairly unspecific about what those things are until this moment. And now what we're fighting for is justice. And that, I think, immediately pushes the song onto a political spectrum. It makes it a little bit more specific, and it makes the sort of rationale of that larger inclusivity, or our hearts are one, or we're all bound together, a little bit more specific. So now the song is becoming about justice and inclusivity. Um, uh, so again, and if you believe in your purpose, then we go on. The answer is here, and we finish up with the same final line. Yeah, man, this gets me every time. Um, I think, as we move into the last lines of the song, again, this bit is repeated, right? And this stuff about in the depths of our heart, the soul of steel, the metal heart is blazing. Bokura no resistance. This is our resistance. This internal standing in defiance of something. So this is where it starts to demand that we ask what it is that we're fighting for, right? And I think there's a long tradition of rock songs um, positioning themselves as somehow in defiance of conventional society and rules and regulations. Um, you know, that sort of school of rock kind of approach that we're going to teach the kids to play rock and everybody's going to freak out. And, we built this city on rock and roll, whatever the hell that means. This idea that this a sort of standard, hard-ish classic rock is somehow of itself subversive and powerful and freaking people out. And it's like, this is nonsense. This hasn't been true for like 60 years. Give me a break, right? The very fact that you can have classic rock, the idea, played at every conservative, um, political rally you can imagine, blaring away, and everybody's like, yeah, you're not defying anything. This is the music of the dominant culture, which is why you're able to use it at your idiot rallies. And I lose more subscribers. Okay. But I think, that's not what this is, right? This is not just a sort of positioning of song, of rock music, as opposed to, we're the sort of bitching, cutting edge, unspecifically so, right? I think the moment we start talking about things like justice and inclusivity, then we've moved in a different direction. And, we're not simply talking about an abstract case. We're also, I think, you got to say, if the band is foregrounding themselves, which I think the song does a number of times, and it's not an accident that we end with that Kitsune sign up that she shouts at the end of the show, at the end of that performance at least, which is the sort of battle cry of baby metal, that part of the resistance that we're addressing is the resistance to baby metal, right? The idea that the rock establishment has been, and in certain quarters continues to be, resistant to the idea of these, three Japanese girls being a metal band. I've talked about this before, and I don't want to dwell on the sort of negativity and the hatefulness of some of that stuff, because it's counterintuitive and I think it's mostly bollocks and it's not worth talking about. But it is interesting that somebody like Herman Lee, has talked about the kind of racism that he has felt, that he's experienced, the harassment, the continual attempt to sort of marginalize him, push him out of the rock scene. So it is interesting to me that somebody like him is one of the people who's a part of the production of this particular song. So part of what the song is about, I think, is the idea of breaking down barriers within music itself, right? To say we can claim to be, yes, we're a metal band. No, we don't look or sound like a lot of traditional metal bands, but this is the nature of the postmodern condition, right? The sort of fragmentation of categories, the hybridization and combination of new things in order to create new forms, and that's part of the nature of what rock music has always been doing, since the 60s onwards, as it has complicated and combined. And that's a legitimate thing of itself. So there's that kind of resistance. And then there's also that sense of the sort of quasi-political. And again, I don't want to overstate this. And last time I said something about politics and baby metal, and people were like, oh, idol bands can't be political. They wouldn't be allowed to be. And as I've said before, what is intended by an artist and what the people managing that artist think they are doing is less important than the effect that that art has on its target audience, right? And I've said this before, Shakespeare's plays had to be vetted by censors and before they could be approved. Does that mean that there's nothing in Shakespeare's plays that was considered subversive? No, of course, there's tons of stuff in there that which is politically charged and which the censors either missed or didn't understand or weren't paying attention to or didn't adequately process the way those things would resonate in performance. And that's what I think we're having here. Now, again, this is not politics like The Clash or Rage Against the Machine are political bands. That's clearly not. They sing about specific issues and ideologies, and it's in your face, and that's their purpose. Obviously, baby metal are not doing that. What I'm saying is that they are political by virtue of existing, right? You've got these three Japanese women fronting this band, and that in metal culture and come on, let's be honest, still in white culture generally, that's considered slightly disconcerting to some people, right? Of itself, it's a subversion of the establishment, particularly when they are pushing for inclusion and for the sort of celebration of difference, whether that's difference in race or gender or whatever it is. The song itself is a fight for inclusion and persistence, right? It's not a fight, it's not a victory song. I've said this before, and I think it comes up in other songs like Karate, which we're going to talk about sometime soon, I hope. It's a song about keeping going, holding on to what you believe in, and pushing through no matter what the world throws at you. And when it comes to issues of justice, whether you're thinking politically or otherwise, this is obviously true. If you take your foot off the gas for a second, we slide back. That seems to me completely self-evident because there are all kinds of forces in the world that that are not interested in justice. So we have to hold on to that. And that's why the metal resistance is in our hearts. It's something that it's a fundamental transformation of who we are that makes us strive for the things that we believe in. That's what the song's about. That's why I posted a video of this a couple of weeks ago when the election results came through. And that's what I think is important. So yeah, it's not political in the sense of being about ideology or specific issues. It's political in the sense of being about inclusivity and justice. And it's a joyous anthem of those things. That's all I'm going to say about this. You'll be relieved to hear. So we will press on. Again, thank you to the people who, though it's a smaller audience than it was, thank you to the people who have encouraged me to keep going. Insofar as people are still watching and still engaged, I will continue to try and do these. So thanks. Put your kids and I up, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.